I don't think the game's over.
Welcome to another episode of Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buckhalter. Follow me on Twitter, Josh G. Buck. Facebook page is Clocker Sports. The website is clockersports.com. And the email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Kicking it off tonight, talking about some, let me not even try to bury the lead here. The NBA is back. We finally had some basketball games. Now, we talked about it a little bit on the last episode, but we finally had actual basketball games beginning on Wednesday. Kicked off with the Clippers and the Magic, actually, and then on Thursday we got to see the Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks. Now, there were a bunch of other games. The Bucks played, the Pacers played. It's not important. It's all about the LA teams because really everybody wants to know which one of them is going to win the championship. I think that maybe not consensus, but the largest portion of people pulling for or the largest group, I guess, having a push for the believed to be champion would be an LA team. As we predicted this entire time, as I've talked about this entire time, the top talent, right? They look right. The guys who had the money to spend on free time or on gym, on their bodies, on working on their games, the guys who you would expect to come in and be in tip-top shape are in tip-top shape, and they're doing their thing. LeBron and AD both had 12 points. Now, listen. I'm not even going to really go into stats because it was the first game of a scrimmage of a restart season. Like, there's so much going on. But none of the top guys looked bad, right? We'll go with that. Luka looked good. Giannis was filling up the stat sheet. Middleton looked good. Like, it was a lot of – you had a good game from Boban. Like, he deserves it. Who else? We talked about how some of the other teams, and I actually was a little bit surprised by this, like the Denver Nuggets, and we'll get to them more in a second, but teams that needed chemistry might struggle a little bit, and there was some of that, but even those teams kind of played better. The Orlando Magic played well in that game. Aaron Gordon looked good, probably just because he was healthy more than anything else. They still didn't have Jonathan Isaac on the floor, but a lot of these guys looked ready. That was the best part about it, and again, it's great because they're back, right? They're playing. I think that's the most important thing. But on top of that, you get to see, and we got to see some of the other players get a chance to kind of show you where they're at, right? We already know exactly where like I said, we knew where the top guys were going to come in, but to see some of these other role players fill in and do well too, and one of them in particular, like I said, was Boban. This guy is a person who is a journeyman. He's not a guy that you think of, but he came out and had double digits, 16 points, I believe, against the Lakers. J.R. Smith got himself going. It was just really good to see. And I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. These guys are top 1% in their profession, right? It's not like they're a bunch of scrubs running around out there at the rec league. But it was good, again, to see everybody go out there and really just be in shape and moving around and having basketball back. And honestly, I'm glad they're not pumping in crowd noise. Hope they keep it this way. Who knows? Because you see all types of crazy solutions going on. I saw MLB is trying to have some digital fans, virtual fans, which is actually a pretty cool concept, but we all know that's just not going to work out properly. I enjoy seeing the crowdless teams out there, hearing the noise from the court. You got the all clear, mellow, fuck out of here, I got that when he went for a rebound, so that was dope. It's a really cool thing. Now, one thing I will say, I think it was during the Wizards game, they had a 3-4 panel commentary going on, but it was across the top of the screen, and it was just really, really awkward, not only for the visual, because I mean, when have you I know they pan to they cut to the broadcast team every now and again, but to have it just sitting up there at the top of the game was kind of clunky. It was in the way, and the commentary is already awkward as it is because a lot of the energy comes from being there in person, and those two commentators, the team feeding off of each other and off of the environment. It's kind of different when you're watching. Now, you're watching it together, so there's that, but there was just a lot of gaps, awkward moments, just because of the transitions not being really that smooth. But overall, it was exciting. Now, I mentioned the Denver Nuggets, and I had to talk about them. They came out with the lineup that honestly was very intriguing. That's what we'll call it. They came out with Nikola Jokic at the point guard, Jeremy Grant running the two. You had Bol. That's right, 7'5", 7'6", Bol at the three, Paul Millsap at the four, and you had Miles Plumlee. Is it Miles or Mason? I always forget which one they had. They have a Plumlee playing at the five. Now, I doubt we'll ever see this on the floor and when the games actually count, but it was really cool to see, especially Bol, because we know the risk that he had, his injury history, especially going against Washington. That was cool too, because they really could use a guy like him with the upside. Now, there's a local tie to this Bol thing, and we'll talk about that before we switch segments or switch sports. But back to Bol, 16 points, 10 boards, and 6 blocks, and the man was going off. Now, he didn't have great shooting percentages, but he was, dude, it was a sight to see. He was shooting shots, and he at one point dribbled and pulled up and knocked the three down. That was just, it's like KD, but in a fun house. It's really, really wild to see, man, and it was again. You had some analytics guy on Twitter trying to, you guys are getting excited about a scrimmage game and this, that, there. First of all, sir, I'll have you know that we've been waiting for this moment for about 4 months now, first of all. Second of all, okay, it was the guy's first game, and it's a player that we all, heard about the talent. We know he has it, but to see it kind of translate, I know it's a scrimmage game. It doesn't mean anything, but it was really cool to see him, again, started at the 3 and was out there handling the ball, pulling up for triples. It was it was a wonderful thing. Now, keep that pin mark about Bol, because I had to talk about what makes him so significant and why that excites me here with the Chicago Bulls. Now, the other news that's going on, a couple of former players are moving on to, well, really 3 former players are moving on into some new ventures in the future. Jermaine O'Neal and Tracy McGrady are teaming up to start a sports agency called 7-1 Sports Group and Entertainment. Mac will be counsel, basically, and Jermaine will be the agent. He's actually trying to get his testing done to become a registered agent. The two have known each other for a while. They came into the league a year apart, but they shared an agency, shoe company, and have really been close ever since. And they spoke about how the recent lockdowns have allowed them to kind of talk about things and see exactly where they wanted to take this. And they kind of talk about how they know they don't have the marketing, because they definitely don't have any marketing or negotiating experience, but they talked about how they're going to bring in some guys who have more experience in that area to help them out. And I think, honestly, what they're trying to get into, and they kind of, I'm not thinking, this is what they explicitly said, they're just trying to bring the knowledge and the experience that they have, being guys who came in out of high school into the league and really, especially in McGrady's case, who had reached stardom and then having to deal with a lot of tragedy and stuff like that. And they kind of both spoke on wanting to be kind of parental roles for those that need it, because, and again, in Mac's case, he talked about going through his injury, the microfracture surgery in Houston, and how that kind of changed him, and he didn't have his father to talk to, so he kind of wants to be that kind of role. And an example would be one BJ Armstrong, former Bull, who made the transition and kind of got into it for the same reason. So keep an eye out on that 7-1 Sports Group and Entertainment. It's a difficult market to crack. You have a lot of agencies. We know about one significant one that's kind of broken the mold is Rich Paul and Clutch Sports, but we know he had a major hand in doing that. So this kind of is an intermediate between that and the more traditional thing, I think, because they don't have the superstar status of a LeBron James, but they definitely have a lot of knowledge in the system, situations, and connections around the league. O'Neal in particular has connections to a lot of prospects coming through the NBA draft process, including one RJ Hampton. Now, they won't be getting into it, I think, this year. I think they're more focused on next year, but still, very interesting, very good to see players doing extracurricular activities and keeping themselves involved in the game even after their time playing is over. Mac, obviously, though, said he would be stepping away from his TV duties should they continue with this, which it sounds like they are going ahead with. So, kudos to them, and hopefully it works out, because that'd be really cool to see them be able to usher in a new era and a new style of agency for some of these young guys, and giving them the leadership that they really don't have, other than a person trying to make a buck, because that's typically all it is. But yeah, kudos to them. The other player that is trying to make some waves in the business side of the basketball world is Kevin Garnett, and rumor has it, not even a rumor, reports are he is interested in buying the Timberwolves. Owner Glenn Taylor has admitted that he's putting the franchise up for sale. And KG, who recently had less than nice things to say about Mr. Taylor, quickly, went public with his amends, basically saying that he looks forward to trying to work with him to make his dream come true. KG is part of a ownership group that is looking to again purchase the organization. Now, again, what makes it so significant is that not only did KG call Glenn Taylor a name, right? We're not gonna go into that. He called him a name, but he also said that he would never do business with somebody like that. So this 180 is really interesting, but the saying is everybody has their price, and ownership stake in the team that brought him into the league and he still has a soft spot for Garnett makes a lot of sense for being that price. He would provide an instant link. This is out of the article on NBA.com talking about this. Things that he needs to think about, or some things for him to consider. 8 consecutive playoff appearances. They were 0-4 Western Conference Finals run, and they won 500. They were over 500 from 97 to 94, 526 to be exact for the winning percentage, and their record before his arrival was 256, and since he left in 07, 342. So they didn't do a lot before, haven't done a lot since, and again, the hate, the level of disdain, let me say that's a better word for it, between Garnett and Taylor ran so deep that Garnett said that he wouldn't even attend his own jersey retirement. So again, a complete 180. Good to see, but a complete 180 nonetheless. And yeah, that's just 3 players, like I said, keeping themselves active and trying to make waves in other ways other than being on the floor. And I just love to see it. Hopefully it all works out for all of them. Now, I talked about it a little bit ago about Bol and his connection and what makes me excited about being here as a Bulls fan. And that is one of the people who at least had a hand in his being a Denver Nugget is Arturas Karnisovas. At least we hope he does. Talked about this with Rick Camp a little bit a few episodes ago, so about a month and a half ago at this point. Roles in the NBA are a little bit ambiguous in that you're not sure exactly what a guy's job is, because a lot of times they will create a role or a title just to keep a guy from leaving. So it's not really sure what role he played in the draft process, but Bol did end up in Denver, where Karnisovas came from, and that's exciting because it shows that they're willing to take a risk on a guy. Now, he wasn't a premium pick, so it's not like they were taking a major risk. It was a second rounder, but still, they took the risk, something that the Bulls have been averse to. In fact, the Bulls are still getting dogged to this day for selling the pick that became Jordan Bell. Now, you could say that was a waste and they could use a guy like that, but again, Bell is also a guy, so I've never been really harping on them on that, but I do understand the sentiment that sometimes you got to be able to take that risk. Again, Bol was there, why not move? Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The point of the matter is Karnisovas is here now, and if he is the reason why the Bulls are now more aggressive in their picks, and especially later on in those second rounders, where we know that they like to have previously moved those for cash considerations and things of that nature, that could be a good sign going forward. However, a bad sign is that it looks like Jim Boylen is going to be the coach. Now, let me not say it looks like. It's looking more and more likely that Jim Boylen returns as the head coach next episode. So, at this point, I think the fact of the matter is that we've seen Karnisovas come in, clean house, but it all slowed down. And that was my first inkling that, hold on, there might be a problem here. We were told that he would have autonomy. And now, whenever you say that, if you have a boss, we know that autonomy only means so far as so far as management would allow you to go. And it seems that Boylen's roots run deeper than we all wanted to really admit. There was the moment where Karnisovas had talked to players, and the reports were that players were giving mixed messages back that, that they weren't happy completely. Lauri Markkanen has during the season spoke out about how things need to change, or he might want to demand a trade. That kind of got out there into the ether. Zach LaVine was on the court visibly upset with Boylen at multiple times throughout the season. Fans called him out for his game management and rosters and lineups and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily that one thing that makes people think that Boylen should go. It's a lot of things. So the surprise of seeing him stick around through all of the firings was the first clear signal that there was problems. Then you had the shutdown happen, where all this was happening while the shutdown was going on, and Reinsdorf recently came out speaking about losses in the 9 figures across both organizations. Now, the thing is, most of the losses are coming from the baseball side. That's fine, except for when you own both teams and this is your moneymaker. What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? So now they're kind of stuck in that kind of holding pattern where if there's no fans allowed next season, they feel like they can get away with having Boylen for another year to save cost, spending on another coach. For a while, they were trying to peddle this off as they don't want to keep cycling through coaches out with their history of letting guys go unceremoniously. But the fact of the matter is that doesn't really hold because Boylen's one of the lowest paid, and the other argument was reputation. I'm sorry, the image, right? Like I just said, they had the reputation of firing coaches, and Rick Carlisle, head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, also the president of the Coaches Association, reportedly has been telling coaches to avoid here, Chicago, and that's the third, which is all well and good, except for, again, holding on to a bad coach to save a reputation doesn't really look like it helps anybody, and it looks like it makes things worse, because in all honesty, all you're doing is showing that you're worried about the wrong things. Improve your basketball team, and that'll improve your standing around the league. First and foremost, that should be now. In their defense, they could be waiting on a coach that's currently in the bubble and they don't have a chance, or as has been pointed out, they could be waiting on a coach that they know, like Ime Udoka, who was in their organization with Mark Eversley. They don't need to talk to him. So there's a few others that they had mentioned in that same vein. So it's not far-fetched that they could be just biding the time, really, but it really is disconcerting. And Casey Johnson of the Chicago Sun-Times has been trying to tell us this for a while, laying little breadcrumbs, talking about the good things that Boylen has done, talking about reasons why they might keep him, and that was the most recent one. He was saying that don't be surprised. You know, he's not saying that it's happening, but again, he's pretty plugged in, and when you see these kind of, again, breadcrumbs, you kind of have to just follow the trail, and it leads you right there. Disappointing, to say the least. And it's kind of I kind of want to write an article for Pivot Ain't Easy about how the Bulls fans deserve an offseason that they just won't get. Three steps, not too much. Front office, which is really just coaching staff, a free agency approach, and a couple of other roster construction moves to kind of balance things out. Maybe I end up doing that, maybe I don't. I'm not really sure, but I know right now the way I'm looking at it, it's disappointing. You know, there was so much activity to stop at Boylen, like to let that be the one that you're like, no, we're gonna let management have the way. Now, if this is all cost cutting, I'm not gonna like it. I hate the fact that they're treating the Market 3 like it's an expansion team in the boonies, but I think I can accept that more than I can accept that he just is in the good graces of management, because that's a horrible, horrible reason to show why it's going to be a long time before they get back to the championship. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to talk about the NFL, that owners there are also trying to pull a fast one over on the players, and they're not having it. Players are not really feeling that too much. Surprise, right? I don't know. Don't go anywhere. BRB, Triple Zeros. Back now on Triple Zeros, and before we went to break, I was talking to you about the NFL owners trying to pull a fast one. It's probably not really a fast one because they are putting it out there in public. They are trying to shave $10 million off of the cap this season. Well, obviously the NFLPA is not really happy about this, and really GMs aren't either, because they've all been planning their seasons around a certain number, and to shave $10 million off this year would mean a lot of veterans are getting cut at the last moment. I think it was a number in the low teens of teams that are actually in position right now to be under the cap. That's not good. $10 million is a horrible idea. Now, players in the PA, I believe, is trying to spread this out over the next 2 years and beginning next season so that they don't have to change anything up right now, which is a much more reasonable request. But with the uncertainty around next year, I think that's where you see the pushback from the owners. Now, a lot of people seem to believe that this is just posturing by the owners so that when they slide over their actual proposal, it's a lot more palatable. This is reasonable to expect, but it's also kind of pointless. We saw what happened with baseball. In the end, you kind of just have to do what you were going to do anyway. I don't think that there's really any posturing to be done. That's the part that I think gets lost in translation, is that one side feels like it has to go above and beyond to show that it's doing something in order to kind of win, right? Win the court of public opinion. Well, I hate to tell you, this big league organization, conglomerate, however you want to describe it, umbrella, that in this is NBA, MLB, NFL, NHL. When you are going against your labor, 9 times out of 10, that's probably too high because I've seen a lot of people who side with the corporate side. 7, 8 times out of 10, you're going to lose that argument because most often people realize that they don't want to. First of all, they don't want to see replacement players. First and foremost. Secondly, they don't want to see a lockout altogether. Now, you could probably flip-flop those for a lot of people, but I think it's much worse to see replacement than a lockout because it's just bad. But you don't want to see that. And so when the players have that kind of leverage, and it might not seem like much, but we see how driven by players all these leagues are, despite the fact that baseball and the NFL in particular try to keep that kind of thing down. Players drive these leagues. If you aren't negotiating in good faith with these players, right? What's their incentive to give you anything? So I know it's probably posturing. I get all that, but it seems like a step that's above and beyond for no reason. Hopefully they get it resolved and they can figure out, because I've been talking about this for a couple of episodes too. We're pretty deep in this damn thing for them to not have this figured out already. They knew the shortfall was going to happen. I would have to imagine that, like, with all of things that were going on as the season was ramping up or as they were getting closer to their deadlines, they should have been preparing as if this was going to be the case. It feels like they prepared as if it was going to be normal. And I talked about it. They were just trucking along without making many adjustments. And they're dealing with it as it happens. And they're kind of trying to use their fallback plans, but they don't even have fallback plans. In these situations, and this is like, it's saying like there's a blueprint, but there clearly isn't. You have to operate from the situation the worst possible, and how can you make it through that? They have not done that, and now they're playing catch up when they're the last of the 4 leagues, and they still don't have a plan. That's not good. Now, they've worked out their testing to daily testing, and that's great. But the other issue is money, health, and money, and they're kind of flying by. Now it's huge. NFL is a juggernaut, and I more than expect them to get this worked out. Just a bad step. Like I said, if you're going to end up there anyway, this is a needless step for both sides that want to get it done and get it done as quickly as possible. Just seems like a bad idea. In other bad idea news, the Washington football team has officially changed its name to the Washington football team. Yeah, they made a press release announcing that going forward, until they officially settle on a new name, they will be known as the Washington football team. They even stylized Washington, and they are selling merch with football team officially on Fan Store. Listen, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. This is dumb. Stupid. Stop it. Listen, this is the most nothing announcement. First of all, a lot of people have been calling you that forever because you wouldn't change the name. So to make this announcement is you're literally just trying to seem like you've taken action. And I understand that we talked about how a lot of the names that they were mentioned that wanted to be used have already been trademarked. But damn, you announce why? Like, it's not that they even are going to use it; it's that they announced it with uniforms and everything. They took the logo off and they got the number on the side of the helmet, the same color scheme, which is fine. Nobody's complaining about that. But like, it's such a half-assed announcement. It's a non-announcement. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. There's pandering and trying to win over the court of public opinion, which is never really a good idea. Trying to win that court is a losing proposition no matter what. But then there's this. You didn't even really try. That's what makes it so bad. Oh, it's so bad. The Washington football. You selling merch like that? You announced it. Again, I'm not even mad about the merch part because you got to make some money somehow. And honestly, I might purchase something that says Washington football team because that's unique. You won't see that going forward. But an announcement to say that that's what we're officially called, that's stupid and cheesy and hokey and everything that Daniel Snyder deserves in this situation. Stupid. Also, what happened to DC Sentinels? I was digging that. Or Washington Sentinels, because DC, right, Washington Sentinels. What happened to Sentinels? I got to check back into that. I was really feeling that one. That had emerged late as a club, as a name that had been trademarked by the same firm that was researching names for them before. And man, that was promising. Maybe that's coming on later on down the road. They got to wait a year to get it all worked out. But dang, suppose they're going to be crowdsourcing names too. Washington football team, folks. Washington football team. Yep, they're doing it. All right. Staying on the Eastern Seaboard there, former Pittsburgh Steeler Ike Taylor admits that he used to listen to music in his helmet. In a recent interview, he spoke about how he, used to jam out because it put him in the zone. Now, was it illegal? Yeah, but it was good for him. Listen, I don't really have a problem with this. I'm sure the league does because who knows what you could have in your helmet if he can have the music, especially with AirPods now, communication and all that kind of stuff. That's very risky. We know Spygate, they got caught with the camera, but what's going to happen when you got somebody in there with the Bluetooth headset on and they're like, I guess you'd have to keep all electronics off the sideline to keep the range down, but I don't trust that. I think Mr. Taylor might have opened up a bag of worms. Bag of worms? What the hell? A can of worms that he wasn't prepared for. Now, it might just slip into the ether. A lot of people don't pay attention to stuff they don't want to see. But I wouldn't be surprised if this was a more frequent occurrence. Maybe it was more so back in the day. But that is an interesting thing to think about because if you could sneak your headphones in there to listen to music, you can sneak your headphones in. What is interesting was that the route that they chose to show of the two was a deeper, maybe it was intermediate, but it was a deeper route. Now, Cam is an intermediate thrower, so that part's not surprising. But to see Edelman run that route, and it kind of encapsulates what we talked about when Cam signed there, how Bill Belichick is going to, Josh McDaniels is going to craft that offense around Cam Newton's strength. A lot of people think that Cam, if he's not running a lot, he won't be useful. I've long been a proponent of the argument that they being Carolina, never fully maximized what Cam could do. They relied on his running more than they should have, and they never developed him beyond that. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't capable. That just means that they didn't use it right. We saw him having a really good season before he got hurt last year, and then got hurt again. 2 years ago, then got hurt again last year. It's been a rough year and a half for Cam. But I think that this is a good situation for him up in New England. And if anybody's going to get the most out of him, it'll be Belichick and McDaniels. And I honestly think that little snippet, that little clip gave you an insight into what you're about to see, where they're going to target, and you got steady, at least reliable hands in Edelman. We'll see if anybody else around him can step up and provide Cam with some weapons. But that was good to see. Hopefully it's foreshadowing. I know foreshadowing was bad. Hopefully it's telling of a bright future for them, because Cam's my boy. I make no secret about that. That'll be one player not on the Bears that you will hear me talk glowingly about, Cam Newton. Speaking of the Bears, though, we're going to wrap it up talking about Brandon Thorn of Establish the Run and his rankings of offensive linemen. He did the Bears. He did every team, but picking up on the Bears linemen came in left to right. Bobby Massey, 19th. He had, this is right to left, so let's go left to right. Charles Leno, 19th. James Daniels, 20th. Cody Whitehair, 17th. Jermaine Ifedi's 26th. Bobby Massey is 19th. That's rough. Average was about 20th, I believe it was, for their position. Last year, going into, they were left to right again. Charles Leno 13th, Whitehair 8th, Daniels 9th, Kyle Long shed a tear because my boys retired and airing the team out. Kyle Long was 9th and Bobby Massey was 21st. Now, he's got Massey a little bit higher, which is interesting because I thought he had a worse year, but Leno has fallen. I think what I saw is not necessarily maybe not what he saw, but what I saw was the tackles aren't great. They're not good, right? They're not really that. They're not. They're average at best. But the interior play last year was so bad for the Bears that it made everything look worse around them. You already had an issue at the right guard spot with Long being hurt, Rashad Howard being basically a bust at that position. Again, he's converted, so maybe he's got time to grow into it, but he wasn't ready last year. That Leno and Massey had to pick up some extra slack that they just weren't capable of doing. Whitehair and Daniels are supposed to be solid, and they're really good players, but they might be out of position. Seeing Daniels back at center was supposed to be a boost to the offense, and it seemed to just hurt it more than anything. And once they switched it back, it kind of worked. Nagy has talked about implementing more of a power run scheme this year, so hopefully we'll see them take advantage of that more and put less stress pass blocking on these guys, and maybe that'll clean some stuff up. But really, I think getting that interior straightened out, be it, even if you don't necessarily have a standout, even if Ifedi isn't a great right guard, if he can be a steady right guard and you figure out the Whitehair Daniel situation one way or the other, I don't really care how you do it. Just figure it out, because this is becoming a problem. It was an issue last year, man. That was bad until they fixed it, and even then it just wasn't right. But if you want to help the tackles, get the insides right, and then from there, that's running backs, and I'll probably dive into that next episode. Maybe even do an article about that for Last Word on Pro Football, talking about the backfield of the Bears and the splits that came with David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen, the obvious nature of the situation that they were in. That's never a good thing. The aggressiveness that I'd like to see, just maybe some expectations and stuff like that about I think that'd be a good one, and people will discuss it on here. But yeah, they got to help out this offensive line with not doing too much with it in terms of, again, the Whitehair and Daniels thing. Whatever looks good, go with that and stop trying to be too creative. I was on board with switching them and putting Daniels at his natural position, we thought, of center and Whitehair guard. And maybe you stay there because you don't want to switch him back and keep messing with him. I'm not sure. But damn it, figure it out. You got to stabilize it, because, again, I don't think Leno and Massey are really good, but I don't think that they're as bad as they were as so often last year. I think they're somewhere in between. They're pretty average, but if you can stabilize that middle, that'll go a long way to helping them out. Hopefully Ifedi can do that. I don't think Cowher can do it. Alex Bars is now in danger of not making the team when you got the two rookies coming in there, if they can edge him out. So we'll see what happens, but wasn't a very positive evaluation from Mr. Thorne, one of the most highly respected evaluators in the business. So just something to keep an eye out, especially for all those people who are Mitchell Trubisky truthers and want to really point rightfully to the offensive line as being a large part of why things failed. I think a lot went into why they failed too, but they definitely weren't great. And Brandon Thorne doesn't expect them to be much better. So there's that. They have that going for them. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshyBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports, and the website, Clocker Sports, at website, clockersports.com. Email address, clockersports@gmail.com. Be sure to read the stuff, man. Pimping ain't easy. And Last Word on Pro Football, and, of course, Clocker Sports. And check out all the other great content that we have. Until the very next time, though, you already know what it is, man. That's the horns.